Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode on Wynonna Earp. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we're literally picking up right where last week's episode left off. Obviously, Wynonna and Doc are looking like, wait, there's people hung, like, what's going on here? This isn't the purgatory we left, because obviously they still don't know how long they've been going. They go inside of Shorty's. It's not where they left it, because it's like the last time anyone was in Shorty, at least to their knowledge, is when Wynonna and Nedley were there. And then like Nedley's daughter's there, and it's like, oh, she's attacking Wynonna. She's like, it's because of you that my dad's dead. It's like, wait, what? I'm like, how? That's why even I was like, how do you even come to that conclusion? But I guess it's because that's the thing I'm curious about. Like, how do you even have any record saying that Wynonna was the last person with? And I guess because they were like the only two people still in purgatory when everything got shot. I guess, but I just think that's interesting. I guess maybe they've read some stuff to be like, okay, these amount of people were out of purgatory, but Mercedes never really got brought up in that, even though she definitely was the last person with Wynonna. So that's why I mean, what the last person with, Nedley. So, and obviously that sheriff comes out, which I've seen that actor in many different things. I think the most recent thing I probably saw him in, and it's been a while, so obviously he's probably done plenty of stuff since then, but I'm blanking on his name. He was like the vampire that Dean was close to in Supernatural. He's the one he met in Purgatory. The dude that became like a brother to him. I'm blanking on his name. It's been a while. But like that's one of the things I kind of know him from. But like I said, I've seen him in other things too. But nevertheless, he's the new sheriff, and he ends up saving Wynonna from being hanged. And so, hung. There's always that conflict about how you do that past and present tense. Regardless, the fact of the matter is he locks her up instead. And I love that she's in there with this dude named Jason. And Jason was like, wait, you're Wynonna Earp? He's like, I thought I was supposed to be safe in here. And it's like, and I even love at one point, she's like, you're fine. She's like, stop worrying. I don't even have my gun. And then he's like, what? And she's like, because obviously the sheriff took it from me because he wouldn't want me to have it. And Jason's just kind of, all right, cool. I love that he's the one that kind of basically gives her the lowdown on everything that's been going down. That basically, and I'd like us finally understanding, like, so basically, after everyone's evacuated, Purgatory became basically the supernatural hotspot. It always has been, but at least there's been instances of the supernatural seeping in. Like, I mean, to be fair, they've been seeping in ever since season 2. But regardless, the fact of the matter is, a lot more stuff has come to, like, more people have made Purgatory their home, so it's a lot more demon infested than before. And even like obviously like there's officials on the outside making it so like, oh, demons can't leave, but I guess that even more shows you it's Black Badge, which I think is so interesting because Black Badge's normal thing is, once again, to basically nuke a place when it's like overrun. So it's like, I mean, to be fair, Purgatory was already in this situation before that. It was literally in this situation at the end of season 1. That was the whole thing. So they managed to kind of not get nuked in that regard. So it's like, I guess because Purgatory holds such significance, because I guess that's another thing too, because maybe Black Badge is now aware of the stairs. Well, because obviously like Rachel's mom was already working on the stairs, like trying to get into the garden some other way. So for there to be a stairway that leads there, like that backdoor access wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be. I mean, to be fair, it did work, but maybe that just had a complicated thing to it. Maybe the stairs are lot less complicated. So maybe that's why they don't want to destroy Purgatory. Maybe there's something else here. Who knows? But regardless of it all, it's interesting. Even the fact is they just kind of quickly like jump over the fact is that Jason's like, oh yeah, I'm only half demon. I'm like, we're just going to quickly go over that? Like that's almost like that's nothing, but I guess, but I hope that we get to see more Jason. I hope he ends up being like Wynonna's new buddy, because like they hit it off in prison and stuff like that. But basically like there's a new hierarchy. Obviously not only a new sheriff, because Nicole isn't the sheriff anymore, because we learned like basically Cleo, for whatever reason, just was able to come into town, became like the magistrate. Like she kind of runs things. She got her own sheriff. And Nicole talks about like the fact is she couldn't campaign like she wanted to because there was just too much going on. She had to look after Rachel. She had to make sure the homestead was still around. Plus she was also spending all that time looking for the people she cared about, Wynonna, Doc, and obviously Waverly. So that kind of never left her an opportunity, so she ended up losing. So for her, it's like she couldn't really do anything for Purgatory. At the very least, it's like I can protect the homestead. This is important to the Earps. This is important to Waverly. I want her to have a home to come back to, I think, type of situation. And obviously, speaking of the homestead situation, I love that, like, despite everything, Waverly's kind of on cloud nine. She comes downstairs and Rachel's there, and it's like, oh, Rachel heard all that like crazy banging you and Nicole were doing, and like Waverly feeling like awkward about it, but also there's traps around the homestead because it's like because basically the woods are infested with creatures now, which I think is so interesting because remember the whole thing about dolls in the woods, how he didn't like the woods, so it's interesting that the woods, I mean, to be fair, there's always kind of been something about the woods. I mean, hell, even looking last season, Bullshard, the whole situation with the trees and stuff like that, but obviously, they ended up having Doc in a trap, and it was around his gonads. And I was like, poor bastard. But nevertheless, like, Nicole kind of gave you a little more lay of, like, what's going down. Like, basically, it's like she hasn't seen Kate since the train. Jeremy, she knows that he's okay, but the fact of the matter is she hasn't talked to him in, like, months. It's like, what the hell is that about? So that kind of gave her some idea, but now it's like the whole Nedley situation. Doc went to that club, and I love he goes in there to kind of bust up the place. He just knocks the dude out, and he's like, the Glory Hole. Is that really the name of this place? And it's like, yeah. And then the owner walks up to him and knows all there is to know about Doc. Even the dude he knocked out was like, oh, I'm a big fan. And, Mercedes is on stage, and we see the Fangs. So I'm like, oh, is she a vampire? But she's like, no, it's just easier if everyone at the club thinks she's a demon because it's a demon club, so... But she kind of... Once again, we will never know 100% the truth because Mercedes likes to spin things. Because what did she do with the... It's like, oh, what about Kate? It's like, oh, yeah, Kate, she compelled me to run. It's like, no, you ran. You left Kate on her own because you're always about self-preservation. To be fair, her brother and sister are dead. I'm sure she cares more about her sister being dead. Plus, she got her face ripped off by one of the widows, and then also at the same time it's like, yeah, all the plastic surgery she went through just to kind of fix that situation. So it's like she's not going to go through the trouble, like, she's going to be a little, she in her mind has every right to be self-preservation is kind of number one key. But it's like she talked about the fact that she tried to take care of Nedley, but then Nedley just kind of went off on his own at one point in time. That's why I'm like, is that true, or did you kind of abandon him? It's hard to say. But nevertheless, Doc goes after the creature that's in the woods because it's like maybe it's the thing that ended up getting Nedley, because obviously once again Wynonna's being blamed for Nedley's death, and then like Cleo at the same time in all of this, it's like, okay, you know what, we're going to make this interesting. It's going to be a chili cook-off, a Randy Nedley memorial chili cook-off for freedom. And it's like, wait, what? Because even at first I was like, oh my god, we're going like battle royale, everyone's gonna have to fight. No, it's a chili cook-off. I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, okay. And I even love, like, obviously, because Wynonna has no idea what the hell she's doing, so Waverly and Nicole are there to help her out and everything. I even love partway through it, it's like, wait, what's that? It's like, oh, Satan. She's like, Satan? She's like, oh, it's like this and that. Perfect for a vegan chili. But whoa. Vegan chili? And then Nicole was like, how is she supposed to win with a vegan chili? And it's just like, and Wynonna being like, not today, Satan. Once again, I swear I feel like I never noticed this many innuendos, but it's like, obviously it's like, oh, like a Bush party and it attracts everyone, and it's like, yeah, Wynonna was like, yeah, everybody loves Bush. Like, everyone kind of comes together when it comes to Bush. Everyone, loves, I thought that was like the innuendo stacked on innuendos. But regardless, they have to make this chili and everything. Sadly, Nedley's daughter is one of the judges. I was like, oh, you are screwed, Wynonna. I would love her going over to Chase and being like, hey, I'll give you $20 for that half of your bacon. He's like, you don't have $20. He steals half his bacon. He's like, Wynonna. I was like, just like that interaction between them is so dope. It kind of reminds me a little bit between like her relationship with the Revenants at the very end, like in season 3, like when they kind of put all their like issues aside and they fought together against Bullshar and his and the Beekeepers. I thought it was so interesting because it kind of has that repertoire between them where it's like, oh, we should kind of be enemies, but we're kind of in this together. We're both, you know, on trial and stuff like that. Because it was like, oh yeah, because he's like, oh, I spilled something on somebody because I thought she was a Medusa. Because you were high out your mind. He's like, no, because she was a Medusa. You know, so it's like, all right there letting you know, like, oh, there's like a crap ton of like really supernatural stuff running around. And I'm wondering, is this them kind of leaning more into what the comic book is? Because I know that, because like, once again, I think in a comic book or graphic novel that this is obviously based on, I think, once again, I've never read any runs of it, but I think she goes a little more like full, like, I don't know if the Revenant things is a thing, but like, I think she hunts down vampires, demons, and stuff like that. So like all the others, I think this is like the show heavily leaning into. I don't know if I don't think the curse is once again, I've never read too much about like some of the differences between the show and the comic book. So I don't know if that Revenant storyline is in the comic book or not. But like, I vaguely remember reading up years ago that at least like at one point she was hunting down like, because I think Bobo is actually a vampire in the comic books and not, you know, a Revenant. That's what once again, this was like years ago. This was like the first season I remember reading that about. So I could be mistaken. Like I said, that was like, what, 4 years ago? So I could be, like I said, misremembering. But regardless. So I'm curious to see the other. I mean, granted, she's once again battled other supernatural creatures. Obviously, she's crossed paths with vampires. Obviously, last season and everything, and even before that. But still, it's like she's running across other supernatural creatures. So it's not like this is new. But I'm like curious to see what other new species and stuff like that she, you know, comes across over the course of this season and everything. But I even love at one point, it's like, all right, who's the winner? And it's Wynonna. And she's like, yeah, I won. And she's celebrating and stuff like that. And even I'm like, huh. And even like look on Nedley's daughter's face, it's like, oh, she didn't see that coming either. It's like, why did one? And then Waverly tasting, it's like, oh my God, this is god awful. But why'd she win? Oh, it turns out because she's going to be a sacrificial lamb for the monster out there. Basically, they appease it by feeding it to people. Feeding people to it. But what I'm also curious too is like whoever she is, Cleo has a gripe against the Earps because Wynonna's like, the moment you met me, you acted like you knew me. She's like, I don't know you, but it's also like daughter of the Earps. I'm like, what? Maybe it's a bloodline thing because she said it's hereditary, daughter of the Earps. So I'm like, so it must be like a family feud. Like this might go back to Wyatt, or maybe this is a later like descendant of Wyatt, or maybe it's a, you know, this later descendant of Wyatt's earlier ancestor of Wynonna's. But whatever the case may be, it seems like Cleo's got like a blood thing again. Like she said it's hereditary, so it seems like it's a blood feud type of situation. Maybe not. I don't know. That's what I think is interesting. I'm also curious to see if that Alice situation is going to circle back around because obviously she's also now a little older. It's been 18 months, you know. I mean, with everything going on, they still can't bring her back because obviously, whether she's the heir or not, it's still a situation of that Earp name still carries enough weight for people to pay attention to it, especially under these circumstances, people gunning for you because of the Earp name. So it's just more of a situation, I'm sure, still not of letting, you know, because there was a part of me that was just kind of crossing my mind. I was like, you don't think it's going to be some twist like she ends up being like Alice or something, right? But I'm like, no, it can't be. I was thinking, like, is there going to be like some finagling, like somehow she rapidly aged in that 18-year time skip, not 18-month time skip or something. I'm like, no, that can't be it. Regardless, I also love that whole thing with Waverly calling her a skank at one point in time, but then she's like, I'm sorry, but to be fair, I don't mean to skank shame. It's just the fact of the matter is you started it first, so it's okay. But then it's like she calls her a skank again. She's like, God, I need to stop saying that word. But all this episode also presents a very interesting thing too, in the sense of obviously we're starting to see peaks here and there that Nicole isn't quite the same. Like it seems like she's trying to put up a front like everything's okay, like she's okay, but then like, you know, just even the way she's around Waverly, it's like she's part there but also part away. Because I think maybe there's a part of her that's, you know, because at one point, like near the end of the episode, her and Waverly are making out, and then like she hears some rummaging, and she's like, she kind of because I think for her, it's like she's been on edge for these past 18 months that it's hard to break that because it's just kind of been her and Rachel, more so her because she had to make sure she's looking out for Rachel. So it's a situation of like, she's just not quite right. And I think that's going to be the thing of like finding out what, because obviously, because I even love that line, because Doc had brought it up early in the episode that he's like, oh, the Property Brothers. And Wynonna's looking at him like, what? And he's like, he's like, oh yeah, kind of put it on in the background when I don't got nothing else to do, that type of situation. And then Waverly was like, oh, if we could have, like, she's like, I missed out on so much. She's like, how old actually am I now? Oh, I missed so much of the Property Brothers. And then Doc leans in and he's like, I feel that, like, they can kindred spirits on that. But she said the line of like, oh yeah, like, it would have been better if we lived these 18 months. And then Nicole was like, no, it wouldn't have been easy living it. She's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. So it's like, there's probably a lot of scars associated with that 18 months. It's just like, not just what we've heard. There's a lot that I'm sure we're not hearing about from Nicole that she just probably doesn't want to talk about. Probably doesn't even want to tell Waverly just because, but it's like, part of me wonders is like, I don't think things are ever going to be quite like, it's not, because for Waverly, it's just like, I went into Eden and then like, I'm out. Like, so it's been, probably hadn't even been a full day for her in the grand scheme of things. Obviously it was a little longer before, Monument, before like, before, Nicole and Wynonna met Rachel there and everything, but even more so in that 18-month time skip. But it's just, and that's time they're never going to get back. There ain't no reversing that. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, kind of going back to the point I was making too, was like, when like Doc was running from that creature and he was outside, like, Nicole froze. I'm like, whoa, you never see that. She's usually on top of things. And the fact that she froze, I think that speaks volumes of like, oh yeah, like, Nicole's just something like traumatic just happened. Like, something happened in that time frame. Because I think it's also the thing of like, she probably after a while you hope, you pray, but eventually like you will give up hope, sadly. She probably did. She probably thought like after all this time, it's like, Wynonna's still not back. She never found Waverly. I'm never going to see Waverly again. I'm never going to see Wynonna again. I'm never going to see Doc again. I'm never going to see any of them again because they're the only family she really has. Because it's like, because remember, she doesn't even talk to her parents like that. She doesn't have the best relationship with them. So like, this is the only family and loved ones she really has. The whole same thing with Nedley, so I'm sure his quote-unquote death hit her hard. I did like when Doc showed up and she's like, and then Rachel's like, oh my God, you did all that while carrying like some booze in your hand? She's like, your goals. And Nicole's like, no. Basically kind of going, she even said it at one point in time later, she was like, okay, this is me telling you to go inside, and that's with my mother voice. So it's like, she is kind of a bit of a mother figure in this regard, but her telling like, no, don't you dare look up to Doc, But the fact of the matter is, he's the one that basically ends up figuring out that the thing isn't the thing that killed Nedley, that the creature is Nedley, that he got infected. And I think it hits Nicole a certain way because it's like, I spent this entire time not knowing that, because it's like Nedley was trying to get to her. It's like always trying to, because that's the only person he's aware of probably that was still in, town, because he did, or at the very least he has ties to that place because of Wynonna and Waverly and all of them. So he was drawn to that, but also drawn to Nicole because she is like a daughter to him, So I think things kind of worked out in that regard. But luckily, when it was all said and done, obviously, like I said, they were able to rescue not only Wynonna, but also save Nedley. And I love he wakes up naked and everything, and he's like, Wynonna, what happened? And she's like, you survived your home. And he's like, fuck yeah. And then also it's like, there's enough basically bad stuff going on right now. Nedley, take this shirt and put it on. So it's like him asking all these questions. They're kind of dodging a little bit, you weren't basically in control. So I was like, he's most likely, he's definitely eating people. So, once again, he wasn't 100% himself. I mean, to be fair, Waverly literally went through that situation at the end of season 1, but mainly through season 2, being kind of, possessed by something. So it's, but luckily, you have Nedley being back, and I'm so glad because I was about to be bummed. They were like, yeah, Nedley's dead. I was like, what? No! I'm like, are you... Once again, I've talked about that recently because, like, I've talked about shows that have done that. Like, The 100 has done that, where it kind of, it killed off a character in, like, the second episode of a new season. I was like, we're just doing this? Like, it's crazy to me to start a new season and just go ahead, oh, and we're just killing off the... I mean, to be fair, to be 100% fair, this show has actually done it, too, because let's not forget, Dolls died in, episode 2 of last season? I want to say it was like episode 2 or 3. I want to say it was definitely 2. So that's why I'm like, so that's why it's like I was a little worried, but luckily Nedley is alive. I wondered, it's like, Nicole was like, kind of get you and your daughter out of town. I'm curious though, is that where things are going to kind of sit on that front? Is he going to actually get out of town? I don't know. There is the whole situation of, it's also going to be a complicated thing of like, oh yeah, the sheriff and Cleo were going to feed Wynonna to the monster, so it's like, now you kind of know their dirty secret, but it's like, are they going to try and wrestle back control of Purgatory from them? Like, once again, we still don't know the full layout of everything and how everything works. We do see that Doc is going to the glory hole. He's trying to make a deal with the dude who runs the place, basically like, oh, I'll be the one to kind of transport stuff for you for this job and your potential favor in the future, which I'm curious like what that looks like. Obviously, once again, there's still like a lot of unknown factors because the whole conversation came up about, like, once again, we haven't seen Kate. Then the conversation came up about Robin, and it's like, what does that mean? Does that mean Robin died, which would suck ass considering Jeremy found love. He was happy in a relationship, and especially after everything Robin went through last season with the whole Bullshar situation, for that to kind of be the case. But she never said he was. The heavy silence just kind of implied like he was. But to be fair, maybe he's not. Maybe that has to deal with why Jeremy's working with Black Badge again, because it's like, despite everything, why would you go back to working with Black Badge? To be fair, it's probably a thing of like, either for Robin's sake or for everyone else's sake, he's like, I have to do this, because like there was no more team anymore, so maybe there was something else. Maybe he felt like there's something like, okay, I need to be on the inside of Black Badge. Because wasn't home dude from last season, I'm blanking on his name, what's his name, like Quinn, the dude who came for Doll's body, or rather Doll's funeral and everything, but it's like he was going to look into Black Badge stuff, so he was like the last one of their group and stuff like that. So I wonder if we're going to see him pop up this season or whatever. I'm curious to find out, what Black Badge is up to, why Nedley's daughter is showing up there too. Like, did she join Black Badge? Because was it a thing of like, oh, like she was because everything was so overrun? Because the whole thing was like, Wynonna and Waverly kind of forgave her because it's like, I get it, like you were scared and things were kind of out of control, and you didn't have us you couldn't kind of turn to us for help like normal. So, but it's like, we're here this time and we're not going anywhere, So there's that side of things. But then there's even a conversation between Wynonna and Rachel at the end where, Wynonna was asking Rachel about Nicole, and it's like, yeah, she's not good. She was alone for a long time, because that's why, Rachel finally left, because she was like, she saw someone that, was basically in the same shoes as her, was kind of alone, and a good person that was hurt. So it's like she wanted to be there for, Nicole, because I think she's like, out of anyone, I can understand the situation she's in. So I think, being there for someone who's kind of in very similar circumstances as yourself. But obviously, once again, still not the full story. But as Wynonna goes into the barn, Black Badge shows up, because it's like, okay, so either, because Nedley's daughter said it specifically to Jeremy, so it's like, did Jeremy bring that up to the higher ups? Are we going to see Moody again? Or is he just kind of out of the picture? Because we haven't seen him since, season 2, the last time we saw him, and that was like so it's been a while, so I don't know, because I don't remember. I think he was just like, oh, Black Badge is done, and then he just like bounced. I think that was the last time we saw him. I can't remember. So there's a lot there. Plus, once again, we still can't forget, there's still that whole Eve thing, like where that storyline is going to take us, but that's just kind of icing on the cake that is the tumultuous situation that is, Purgatory already currently in its state. It's going to be interesting to see what this new normal is going to be like for all of them now that they're kind of reunited. It's even, I didn't talk about it, but when they were trying to, like when they were wrestling, you know, Nedley when he was in his monster form, and just that music playing like that, it just felt so out of place. But I think that's the point, because I think for Wynonna, it's just this happy look on her face, like, to have everyone together again. Granted, they're missing Jeremy, but it's like almost having everyone together again. It's almost like old times. It just feels like forever, but they're back home and everything. Not the best circumstances, but still, I think that's what she was kind of happy about, you know? So I am very, very, very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.